Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And this is Andor Candor, where we talk all things Andor on Disney+. This week, we are diving into episode number 8, Narkina 5, directed by Toby Haynes and written by Beau Willimon. This will be a full spoiler discussion. We are going to be talking all about the brutality of the Empire and Cassian moving forward in his story and some of the things that he's facing in his journey. This episode was a tough one to chew on, for sure. Did you feel that was kind of similar for you, Sarah?
Yeah, this is a show that becomes more and more and more difficult to watch with every episode as it also becomes a better and better and better show. It keeps one-upping itself and also becomes louder and more not forceful is maybe not the right word, but like just more clear in its messaging every week. And this is one where we really see the brutality of the Empire and really see the horrifying things that they're putting the galaxy through. And it is an impressive showcase of the Star Wars galaxy in ways that we haven't seen it before. And I'm simultaneously really impressed as like somebody who wants to dive into Star Wars and all of its complexities, and also horrified just as like a general normal person viewer of the terrifying things that are happening because they are so close to our real world in many ways. And I think that gives them a lot of power.
Yeah, I think we definitely saw that even more so in this episode than previous ones, and it continues to build on itself. So it was a tough one. But before we dive into the episode, a couple of housekeeping items up front. First thing, our audio. I'm moving into a new place, so I'm in an entirely new room. Sarah is getting a new computer and might be getting a new mic soon. So
my mic broke, you guys, at the same time as my computer. So I'm going through it. We're fixing one thing at a time here, and the mic is coming second. Yes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm in like a way more echoey room right now too. There's like no soundproofing in here, so we're doing our best. Full transparency there. And the other thing too, surprise, surprise, we happen to have gotten some screeners for the next 2 episodes of Andor. So we just wanted to be as transparent as possible and put that out there that we have seen those for episodes 9 and 10. So therefore, we won't be speculating in this episode about what could be coming in the future. And we also will obviously not be like spoiling anything or alluding to anything in the future because we are tight-lipped on all of that. But we just wanted to make that, as transparent as possible. You won't hear a peep from us. So don't worry.
Right. I think all we'll say is like, if you've been enjoying Andor, you'll keep enjoying Andor,
Yeah.
like, so, so I hope you can enjoy this conversation and also continue to enjoy our Andor conversations with us. The last piece of housekeeping, though, is that we had the opportunity to interview Nicholas Bertel in a fan roundtable situation. And it was amazing. It was so, so cool. And he is just a joy to listen to talk about his work. And that is on your podcast feed now. So if you haven't heard that, go and listen to that. And also there were so many great outlets, our friends and peers here in the Star Wars community. So go give them a listen as well. So you'll get the full list if you go listen to that episode. It was a real honor to be invited, for sure.
Absolutely. Nicholas Bertel is a genius, and I hope he wins an Emmy for his score on the show next year. He deserves to be nominated at the very least. Yeah. So episode number 8, Narkina 5, we leave off last episode with Cassian going to prison, and it's dark, it's brutal. Cassian is sort of being shuffled along into these transports, unsure of where he's being taken to. The handcuffs get taken to the sides of the seats electronically or magnetically, and he can't move his wrists. So it's very restraining in that sense. And we go to this new planet where there's water and there's like 6 facilities that all look the same. And he is taken out barefoot. Floor shocks him. Imperial guards everywhere. I mean, we are in a terrible place for this character. And really, this episode put the full brutality of the Empire on display. And this isn't even like the Empire in the traditional sense, right? We don't see stormtroopers. We don't see, shore troopers shuffle them on the transports and then they're gone for the rest of the episode. We don't see like enforcers like Darth Vader or Palpatine or any of those big threats, right? These are just probably people who are making very little or nothing at all being prison guards. They're short staffs. They're late to their posts. They're kind of a mess themselves, but they're almost power hungry. They feel like they have power to wave shock rods in people's faces and be an authority figure and be a part of the Imperial machine and dehumanize these prisoners. It's really a terrible episode in the sense that like nothing amounts to this as being fair or just.
It's such an interesting concept. There's a lot of really like interesting concepts that are discussed or thought about in this episode, and I think it's so interesting that we see some of these ideas throughout the episode. So, is this the time where I can talk about the Panopticon and Foucault?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
okay, great, thank you, guys. I've been waiting to talk about the Panopticon. We're there. Um, so like to kind of like pull a little bit from that out from that a little bit. This is an episode that is all about viewing and gazing and surveillance and making everybody feel like they're being watched. And it starts out right in the beginning with Cassian, right? Like as he is being shuffled into that transport has two rows of seats that are facing each other. So immediately all of the prisoners on that ship are watching each other. And then at the same time, we're getting Cyril's interrogation from Deidre when they meet. And that room has glass, like one-way mirror kind of glass, on 3 out of the 4 sides. The other side is a door. So he's being watched from all angles. Then we get to this prison where, as you said, like all of these prisoners are being completely dehumanized, not only by their status as somebody who is incarcerated, but also by the fact that they're not allowed to wear shoes, which can be tied to a person's dignity, right? Like wearing shoes part of being able to move around in the world safely, and also maybe completing an outfit, like a style choice. Those sorts of things kind of really important to somebody's identity. They don't have that. Of course, they're in prison uniforms. They have no sort of identity in that way. But they get to this prison, and this prison gives me Panopticon vibes. And the Panopticon, if you do not know, is and I'm pulling from a Brown University website here. It was to monitor the maximum amount of prisoners with the fewest possible guards at our security costs. So the layout consists of a central tower for the guards surrounded by a ring-shaped building of prison cells. Basically, they can look on all sides. They can see everybody. There's only a few of them needed in order to do that. So the idea is that like you're being watched at all times. You don't know when eyes are on you, so you kind of always have to be on, right? Like
program
you kind of
on.
have to right. So there's this sense of like always being viewed and always being watched, and that causing like the paranoia, which it like spins in your mind, right? And that's something we're definitely getting in this setting. We're getting it with regards to the fact that there's like a god mic here. So the guards are away from the prisoners. They are separate from them. They don't necessarily interact with them on a daily basis. And they can, they get the point where Kino, who we will talk about Kino, you bet. It gets a call on the god mic and is like, oh, they're calling us. So they're being watched at that point. And the fact that like Kino, who is a prisoner, is also in charge of his whole floor of people. So total, there are 50 people on that floor, or for that shift rather. There's a certain amount of surveillance that has to happen between everybody because they are all responsible for each other as much as like, they are responsible for themselves with the guards. They also have to be in monitoring each other's behavior so that they don't piss off the guards, right? So there's this idea of like of the Panopticon and of Foucault and surveillance, and the ways that we like are are using power to dehumanize others and like make the place function, if that makes sense. But I just find it interesting that like this idea of being viewed and being surveilled doesn't exist just in the prison, but it also exists like in other spaces uh, in this show, including, and I didn't even mention like the ISB round table where they're like at the
Right.
meeting, and then
Yeah.
there's a row of seats too as well, like for all the aides. So like there's two layers of that viewing. You could even put Mon Mothma's circular couch in there.
Mm-hmm. The Senate
Like
chamber. I mean, the Senate chamber, everybody
right,
faces each
right.
other, right? It's a circle. So
So there's this thing that's happening with regards to gazing and viewing and surveilling others, and how that changes people's behavior in the show, or attempts to change people's behavior in the show. And I don't know, that's a complete tangent from what you kind of started talking about, but I got up on my soapbox and I needed to say the thing. And I've said it, and we can move on now.
well, it's a great point though, because I think the architecture has been such an important part of the show, and it
Right.
really lends itself to the idea that we are living in a time period in the galaxy where everybody's under surveillance. Like how Mothma says, there's a new banker every day at her bank that
Right.
she doesn't
Driver.
recognize. She's got new drivers, right? So everybody's like under a magnifying glass, and I think seeing it within the prison setting, where the guards and the sort of overseer of this prison, this voice, they're all able to get away with a lot more, and how they treat these people with some of the most cruel punishment imaginable, like literally making their floors at night, like their hallway. It will shock you if you step on it. If you sleepwalk, it will kill you. Not, it will fry you,
Right.
like the word fry, right? And I think hearing that word about being fried evokes such a like a visceral reaction, because you just, electricity is just, it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing, right? Like you don't want to be shocked. Like static electricity itself. Whenever I touch something, I like jump like 10 feet in the air, right? So I think
Right.
understanding the fear of these prisoners and like what they're afraid of is it's easy to get inside their minds, because we know that feeling of being electrified or electrocuted, seeing the system in which they're living. It's horrifying. But I do want to go back to one earlier point, Sarah, which was, did you get the impression that like the prison guards weren't really longtime Imperial employees or like high ranking Imperial employees? It really does feel like they're just people that they brought in off the street and told them like, here's a shock stick, make sure these people stay in line. Because for me it was almost giving like Stanford prison experiment vibes. How much authority can you give somebody, and then what do they do with that authority inside of a prison setting?
Right.
um
Mhm.
and like obviously the Stanford prison experiment included a lot of like psychological abuse with prisoners, when these ordinary people who are played the role of the guard, and like what they were able to inflict on these people horrifically, right? And so I'm kind of getting the same sense here, that these are people who fear the Empire and figure that they could join the prison system as a guard and have a job and maybe contribute in some way, where they don't become a prisoner themselves, but they're a part of the system. um
Mm.
I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know if you got the sense though that these were sort of
I
everyday
mean,
people who decided to join a flawed system.
I get the sense that that one guy that he first meets, who gives me like the looks of David Byrne plus Sting in the beginning of the episode, who gives the speech about, and then he like shocks them. Um, like he's in it to be cruel, he sees his
Right.
power as not just his job but his duty. But I can see what you're saying with regards to some of the other guards that we see, and how they're kind of like, oh, but there was a delay on level 3 or whatever. And then the one guy's like, well, too bad, there can't be delays. And I think that's interesting. And I mean, I think the reality of it is that like a lot of very otherwise ordinary people get caught up in systems of fascism and do terrible things in the name
Hmm.
of order. um and and become explicitly complicit in terrible behavior and horrifying things. You could see that with any war that's happened, right? You can see that with specifically Germans in World War II, who ultimately, joined the Nazi party or whatever, and worked in camps, or people who were just like conscripted into the SS and that sort of stuff because they pulled a lot of just regular people from towns. Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning. Very excellent read. Interesting. But yeah, like ultimately a lot of quote unquote otherwise ordinary people get caught up. And these people that are the guards here are not necessarily like the Palpatines of the Empire. They're like Joe Schmo who decided he was going to take a job as a prison guard and is now shocking
is now having a power trip, right? It's like the guy when he walks in, he's like, you see this stick? If you ever feel it, you will remember it and you won't want to ever feel it again. It's like you're just on a power trip.
Well, it's not even always a power trip. Like it's like I think it can be a power trip for some of these people, like the guy you mentioned, but also it's it's the if everybody is answering B and I think the answer is A, but the peer pressure or like the order of the group dynamic is telling me B, I'm going to say B as well. Like it's following the rules, capital R. We live in a society that has rules and laws, and we may not think all the rules and laws are just, but a lot of the times we're not going to go against those rules and laws because that's the way the society works. Like it's the same way in this prison. Like even if they do think something different, they're not going to go against the norm because also within this space they've been conditioned to think about the prisoners as the other, as subhuman, as not worthy of their respect or humanity or dignity. And I think that's like a huge issue in the prison system in our real world, is like there is a sense of us versus them, and the prisoners are the them and they are less than human. They don't deserve the same things that the guard or the outside the civilians do. Like they don't deserve their humanity or their dignity or their space or their belongings or privacy, any of these things. And that's a huge problem within the Empire, is the us versus them mentality that is bolstered by the constant surveillance and the constant need to like feel on guard, like I'm being watched. I'm not going to take action if I feel that I'm being watched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that really stuck out to me in the beginning was Cassian's fear.
Yeah.
I think that's the most scared we've seen him in the series. I think the one shock was all it took, right? Because once he goes in the room and he starts to see the operation happening there, and then they put him in one of those bridge areas, there's almost that ringing sound effect where he's not even attuned to anything happening around him. He's literally just like hyperventilating at that point. And Cassian's scared. When we think about what is the inflection point for Cassian to turn him into the diehard rebel we see him as in Rogue One, it's all these formative experiences that are happening, but I think largely it's going to be this prison experience, like him being in here and seeing the way that people are treated, and also seeing the way in which we find out in this episode how his actions on Aldhani have affected these prisoners, because we find out that the public order resentencing directive basically extended all of their sentences, and they're like, how do you not know what it is, right? And Cassian has been sort of this guy who's been on the run for a while. He like, as Bix says in the last episode, he lies, he deceives, and then he runs. And he's been doing that, and I think now he's finally realizing the ripples that he's leaving in the aftermath of what he does, right? Like he goes to Ferrix and he sees what the ripple effects were there. The Empire's there and they're present and everybody's hunkered down. Then he comes to this prison system and he sees, oh shit, what I did on Aldhani had severe consequences for these people. Like I can't just operate and act like I exist in a vacuum. Like my actions have consequences. I almost think of High Republic, Path of the Open Hand, right? Like if the Force is used here, the Force balances somewhere else in a negative way, which, obviously the Path of the Open Hand is flawed, but like the thinking here is like, one action here will cause a ripple effect somewhere else that he may not even be aware of, whether it's the ISB or Ferrix or this prison. And him realizing that is a bit of a wake up call.
Right. And I think it's also quite interesting that he doesn't have any recollection of this. And you talk about the ripple effects and how that starts to catch up to him. But I also think it's indicative of a wider galactic Senate or sentiment. Senate. I'm about to get there. My brain was ahead of me. And in the sense that, yes, it's something that Mon Mothma and the senators are talking about. I think they mention it as well, or upcoming regulations or further clamp down on their lifestyles and how they do their job as senators. And the prisoners see it as, this is directly affecting me because my prison sentence is now 2 times as long. But if I'm an everyday citizen, if I'm Joe Schmo on Namos,
Yep.
Close. Niamos.
Yeah.
If I'm hanging out there, living my life, partying it up, hanging out on the beach with my jams, I'm not looking up. I'm not thinking about the wider galactic implications. I'm not worried about what's happening on a planet across the galaxy. I'm worrying about myself. I've got myself to feed. I've got myself to please. I've got, I got to take care of myself, right? And for a lot of people, right, probably the majority of the galaxy, they're not worried about what's happening beyond their realm, beyond their point of view. And we see this in our personal lives in the real world as well. It is when you are trying to survive, it is difficult to have the time to be involved in politics, in local situations in your community, when you're working multiple jobs to survive, to provide for your loved ones, to provide for yourself, to make sure that you have a roof over your head, right? And I think that in a way, Cassian is also just a representative for that happening in the galaxy as well. And I also think there's something to be said about a non-prisoner, somebody who's not a prisoner, not knowing about what's happening with the prison system. Right?
Right. Yeah.
The everyday citizen is also othering incarcerated people because they are somewhere else and they have done a capital B bad thing in the society. Why should I care about them? Right?
Or maybe not even done a bad thing, because Cassian is literally thrown in prison for nothing.
Right.
For being, in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah.
I say that all a bad thing for society. It's easy to just choose to other that whole group of people because you don't want to interrogate that whole system. So why am I, a moisture farmer on Tatooine, for instance, worried about what's happening on Coruscant with regards to laws, as long as it's not affecting my moisture evaporators,
Yeah, and it seems to be a big sentiment that's across all time periods in Star Wars is okay, well, if the Empire and the First Order are operating in these areas, why should I care? Right? It's like Black Spire by Jalila Dawson. The Empire is not on Batuu. Why should I care about? Or sorry, the First Order is not here. Why should I care about the First Order? And likewise in the show, Cassian's well, the Empire, we hit them hard at Aldhani, but Marva, let's just run away to a different planet where the Empire isn't. And she's but you don't understand. They're everywhere. The only place they aren't is in my mind. Right. And so I think Cassian is learning the hard way that he just can't keep running away from the Empire, because the Empire will always catch up to him. And it's sort of that Jyn Erso attitude he had, which was, it's not a problem if you don't look up.
Exactly.
And he tells he tells Jyn Erso, you're not the only one who lost everything. Some of us just decided to do something about it. And so I think he's going to have to get to a point where he realizes he can't just keep running. He's going to have to do something about it. He's going to have to rise up and become the person he's going to be in Rogue One. And so it's fascinating to see him at the start of what I think will probably be a formative experience for him, and have him realize I can't just be on the run for the rest of my life and think that I won't be untouched by the Empire.
Right, because he has been pretty explicitly stopped at this point. Stuck.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the prison system, though, let's talk about some of his inmates for a minute here. So his fellow inmates. Most surpringly, Andy Serkis. Okay, when I heard the voice, when you heard the voice, did you kind of you're wait, I recognize the voice? Because at first I was wait.
I'll be honest. I did see some things on Twitter Specifically, and I'm not naming names, but it will be clear, but this is not a dig. This is not a dig. I just saw somebody post a Your Snoke theory sucks. And I said, oh, interesting timing to post a Your Snoke theory sucks. That's not a new thing. And then I went into this episode and I'm laying in bed. I am laying in bed. Okay. I'm watching in the TV in my room and I hear his voice and I sit up and I laugh because I was just so delighted. I was so delighted. I was so delighted. I love Andy Serkis. I've loved Andy Serkis for a very long time. I did a whole presentation on his work in the Planet of the Apes trilogy in college. Like I made a whole graphic. It was a whole thing. But yeah, I really admire the guy. So I was just so thrilled to see him back once again as Kino Loy, the floor shift manager.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about his beyond his introduction? Like, what do you think about his character and the role that he's playing in this story?
Well, he's clearly keeping people in line. He's got a very regimented way of doing things because he's like, we never fall behind. I've got this many days left on my sentence. Like we are doing things by the book so I can get out of here. Like that is my aim. I don't care about anybody here. I'm in it for myself and to get out as soon as possible. Right. And he's so close to the finish line that he just wants to really get there. That's like all his motivation is. I understand his motivation completely. But it is fascinating to see Andy Serkis, just also his face, because we, obviously he was Supreme Leader Snoke in the sequel trilogy, and Andy Serkis is somebody who often does a lot of mocap, like whether it's the Planet of the Apes trilogy, which we're getting another movie of. I'm so excited for that. Or Gollum in The Lord of the Rings. And so it's just not often that we get to see him as an actor. Luckily this year we've gotten him in the Batman as well as Andor. Yeah, he's just such a powerful actor, and you can already tell that we are so lucky to have him blessed on our screens. So, as if the series couldn't get any better, and then Andy Serkis appears, you're just like, wow, how did this happen? And obviously the back of my Snoke shit theories is so fun. It's really it's gonna be really fun just to have some have some fun with Yeah, I tweeted out
his
hey,
forehead.
Well, because back in the 2015 to 2017 YouTuber days,
I thought it was hilarious.
All the thumbnails with the red circle on Snoke's head where the scar was, and people trying to be like, okay, is that Plagueis's scar? So it really brought me back. But no, I mean, the meme of it all is very fun to participate in. But seriously speaking, though, I'm just so happy that we get to have this character now and to see what happens for the remainder of these episodes.
Right. And I think it was so interesting that I didn't necessarily catch on to in the way that he explained it. But he did an interview and he talked about his character, Kino, as a union boss, as maybe somebody who was a union boss prior to his time in prison. And so, or a leader. And so he's running it a tight ship beforehand because he also wants to care for and watch out for his people. And I thought that was so interesting because you kind of get the feel that he's a bit of a hard ass. When you meet him, he's very strict. He literally has an exposition monologue and he delivers it as if it is not an exposition monologue, as if he is just not laying down the groundwork, but in a way, by giving everybody all the pieces of the information of what they need to do and how they need to do it, he is looking out for his team, making sure that they're as safe as possible in this system. And he's kind of playing by the rules in order to care for everybody, which I thought was a really interesting way to frame his character. And kind of thinking about that interview, had me interrogating my initial opinion of Kino when we first met him.
Where was this interview that he gave? Which outlet?
No idea.
Okay. Hey, I haven't seen that. I'll have to check it out. But it's interesting too, though, because does he only care about the health of the people? Because he knows healthier people means they don't fall behind. And they stay in line if they're healthy. And if they're healthy, they can be on program as needed and so on and so forth, right? So like the motivations are a little muddled for him.
Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair. That makes sense. That would check out, yes.
Yes.
So even though we've now had Andy Serkis in human form, I guess I could keep bringing him back as other aliens, potentially. Maybe Snoke in episode 10. Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, I'm sad to report there is a Screen Rant article that is titled, "Is Andy Serkis actually playing Snoke in Andor?" And
no, stop. We're not going to have that conversation.
Hit my head against a wall. The other prisoner of note here, Melshi.
Melshi.
Can we take a minute here? Like,
yes,
I flipped a lid when they're like, "This is Melshi," and then they both look at each other. Andor and Melshi look at each other and they nod. And then somebody says something to Andor, and then Melshi goes, he goes, Keef. Keef is his name. And they kind of like have a moment. And I'm like, okay. So they're clearly establishing that one, Melshi sees this guy for who he is, like a human being named Keef. Keef Gargo.
Which
great new name.
It's not, but that's
Star Wars
fine.
names. Yeah. But obviously we know Melshi is one of the men from Rogue One that goes on the mission to Scarif. He's the one who storms the beaches with Baze and Chirrut, and he's one of the couple guys who says, like, he's the one that says, "Oh, the master switch, it's over there," and that's when they realize they got to walk across the beach. Chirrut has to walk across to hit the master switch, right? And then I think Melshi's like shortly killed after that.
R.I.P. Melshi.
So it's so fascinating now to see the introduction of this character who we know is going to be such a pivotal role in the Battle of Scarif and in Cassian's life, and as part of Cassian's crew of people in the Rebel Alliance. And so now we're starting to see those pieces where I'm like, oh shit, okay, we're getting into the end game a little bit more now. Like, we don't have K2SO quite yet, but we have Melshi. This is big.
Well, it's interesting too, because I mean, like, none of us expected to see a character like him pop up in
Absolutely
the show, you know?
not.
Like, it's in many ways it's a really random choice. But it's great because it's going to expand upon something we didn't desire expansion upon, if that makes sense. And I mean that like in the best, most complimentary way. Like, in a lot of ways we're like, oh my God, how did Han Solo, get his name? Or, those sorts of things where it's like, how did it happen? And it's something that's talked about a lot, like within the fandom. Nobody's asking what Melshi's backstory is, or Melshi and Cassian's backstory is. There's no Melshi Cassian fix, I think, on AO3. Like, that's not something that people are thinking about.
There definitely are. I've learned.
You looked
have not
up,
read. No, but I saw Twitter.
Cassian fix.
No, but I just saw people tweeting about Melsh Cassian, and that is a ship. That is a ship.
Melshi.
So I'm very happy for the Melshi Cassian shippers. Go all of you. You've deserved this since 2016. I'm happy for you.
But again, it's not something that like people broadly are thinking about. So it was a great introduction and a great way to like to build upon the backstory of these two characters, and ultimately make those scenes in Rogue One feel more important,
right? Because like,
valuable.
what's going to happen with these two characters as part of this prison experience and beyond, right? Like, that's the question we're all asking.
Right.
And that'll be exciting to see, because I think the thing that's so brilliant about the series and why I love it so much, and how it doesn't like spoon feed us the things that you would expect and maybe Star Wars fans would love, just for the like interconnectivity of it all. They could have easily made the KX droid last week K2SO, right? That would have been the easy way. That would have been the easy thing to do, right? And now they're like, Melshi, of all people. That's who Cassian meets first on his journey, like as part of the Rebel Alliance, is Melshi.
Right.
Like, it just never would have crossed my mind.
It's interesting too, because I think we were talking last week about how we thought, well, maybe like the droids become important within like the prison situation. And like, we don't see any enforcer droids here, no KX units at all, which is really interesting, because I think that would have been like something easy to do. But instead they were like, yes, here we use, quote, minimally invasive enforcement techniques. And you're like, Interesting.
Mm-hmm. But we sort of leave off this prison scene with Cassian 30 days later, or 30 shifts later, however many days that translates to.
30.
He seems to have slotted himself in. He is with the routine. He gets up from his bed, has a little sip out of his wall tube, uh, which I can't imagine how bad that tastes. And he goes right to work, and they keep on working, and then it cuts to the credits, right? So that's what's happening in Narkina 5. Um, Remains to be seen what happens next. But I think we should hop over to Coruscant, because there's some interesting things happening there. We haven't even talked about like Luthen or Mon Mothma or Cyril or Daedra. Where should we start?
Can we talk first? Can we transition with the music actually?
The music, yeah. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Because I think this episode really sets itself apart both visually and musically from the other episodes we've gotten so far. And I think there's a great transition moment here. It's upcoming, I promise, with Cassian. And we're getting a lot of these strings, a lot of these string builds, soft. The string sound is not, aggressive in a sense here. But we're getting these electronic elements that make the music feel real tilted, make it feel uneasy. You can really sense the fear in Cassian as he's here on Narkina 5 and how scary it is for everybody there. But we also get some of those tilted melodies on Coruscant and with, Luthen, with Saw, with Cassian, and
Which, by the
just
way, we haven't even mentioned that Saw Gerrera is in this episode. Forrest
maybe
Whitaker.
Maybe we jump there before we go to Coruscant, because that's kind of a separate thing.
Now
but
I'm thinking about it. But yeah, Saw Gerrera is here.
We knew that Saw Gerrera was coming because he showed up in the trailer and everybody was like, "Whoa, hello, Forrest Whitaker. It's nice to see you again. Didn't expect to see you again, but thank you for showing up." And we finally get a piece of that, and it's so fascinating because you can definitely see like the beginnings of Saw is still breathing well. He still seems to be functioning and moving well, but and like speaking very clearly and with a lot of sense. But there's a couple moments when he's talking when he and Luthen have a different point of view on what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. You can see where he gets in his mind a little bit and how he starts to spin. Um, to why his point of view as a rebel is the most important. And so it's really interesting to kind of see. And when we get that shot with the tilted music, there we go. There's the whole piece there of how he's going to become the person that we know him to be in Rogue One. But also just the ways and all of these rebel cells, all these prominent people are disparate. They're all really different. They all have different methods and different aims. And it's really interesting that Luthen leads that with the sense of oppression breeds rebellion.
Yeah, he needs the Empire to come down hard on people. They need them angry for this to work, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and it's fascinating with the introduction of Saw, because these last couple episodes we've come to see that okay, Luthen's a bit extreme compared to Mothma. Mothma is at what cost, and Luthen's at the cost of everything, right? And then now we meet Saw Gerrera, who's even maybe a little more past Luthen and some of his methods. And we know Saw Gerrera doesn't necessarily match up with the rebels and Mon Mothma in Rogue One, and he ends up leaving the Rebel Alliance because he's this is too soft. I don't want half measures, and so he leaves, right? And so now we have all these different political factions that are at play, which makes this even more complex and gray, and I love that about the series.
It feels like Luthen is at the center of it in a lot of ways because he seems to be playing every side here. He's telling Cassian what Cassian needed to hear in the early episodes. He's telling Vel and the Aldanis what they need to hear in those episodes. He's talking to Saw in a way that we haven't heard before. Oppression breeds rebellion. He wants the Empire to really crunch them so that they feel oppressed and therefore need to fight more. And that's how they get people to their side, which is I get what he's going for, but that's a wild thing to say out loud, and to be at the center of that thought. And then he tells Mon, something different. They're all committed, but they're all going on different paths, and Luthen plays every single side of that, and it's so fascinating.
Yeah. And here Luthen's making a pitch for Saw to work with a new character that we haven't heard, Anto Krieger, who we find as a separatist, and knowing what happened with Saw Gerrera's sister in the Clone Wars series, she died at the hands of a separatist Jedi / Republic fiasco, and so Saw has like a really deep bred hatred of separatists. So it makes sense that he wouldn't want to work with this person. And they mentioned this place called Spellhouse, so that seems to be like the next target for Luthen, like the next Aldani in a sense. That's what I got here. Saw has this like really great kind of soliloquy where he's like, the Neo Republicans, the separatists,
Right, where he's
the
like, he's
alliance,
spinning.
he's
Yeah.
yeah, and he's like, they're all lost. He's like, I'm the only one with the clarity of purpose, and he asks Luthen like what he is, and I was actually, when he was like, "What are you, Luthen?" I was like, "Is he gonna say, what will you become?" Which was like one of the cut lines from Rogue One,
Right.
the first Rogue One trailer. I was like, "Oh, put it in there, give it a home." Finally, it's been so long. It's been wandering after 6 years. But Luthen says, "I'm a coward. I'm a man who's terrified of the Empire. Empire's power will grow beyond the point where we can do anything to stop it. I'm the one who says we'll die with nothing if we don't put aside our petty differences."
He
And
also
so, yeah.
lies out of his butt to Saw when he's like, "Did you do Aldani?" And Saw's like, "Bish, I thought you did Aldani." And he's like, "Nah, man. I'm pretty sure it was you."
Such a gaslighter.
Oh my god, Luthen just becomes more and more interesting every episode, and I'm like, who are you? Who are you?
Who is he?
Stellan Skarsgård, man. That's who he is. He's really good at his job.
I need to know everything about Luthen Rail. Like, I want a book, I want a comic, I want everything.
Yeah, I want to know like what his childhood was like. Like, who is he? Where's he from? How did he get to be this, like a historical artifacts dealer? I don't know. Anyway.
It's fascinating though that like I thought Stellan Skarsgård would be like a couple episodes character, and then here we are on episode 8, and he's still here, and now he is talking to Forrest Whitaker. Like, what planet are we on? This is great. This is great Star Wars.
And Andy Serkis is in the show.
Like in the same episode. Like, come on, it literally doesn't get better than this.
Right.
But maybe it does, because let's jump over to Coruscant. From I guess whatever the planet was that Saw is on. Mothma. Mothma is in this episode.
The Mothma Renaissance continues, baby. And
oh yeah.
I think what's really interesting, actually, about Mon Mothma this one is she's trying to work with Takolma, to have workarounds for her banking dealings so that she can funnel money to the rebellion. And they're having this dinner party, and this dinner party is just very interesting, and the roles that they're all playing. But there's a drink that I guess is popular on Chandrila, and Perrin has one that has like 2 sprigs in it, and Mon doesn't have any like sprigs in her drink. And she goes, or Perrin goes, "I thought you really liked that." And she goes, "I was just better at pretending." And he goes, "I find that hard to believe." Perrin has no clue. He thinks so little of Mon that she can't pretend.
And I think he's actively trying to figure out if something is there, right? Because he gives her a lot of glances, especially now that Takolma's in the picture. But also,
I think
like,
Takolma makes her suspicious.
Is Perrin suspicious because he thinks there's some underlying motive, or is he suspicious because he's a jealous bitch and
that one?
He thinks that maybe Mothma is like getting into some sort of affair, which like could cause a hit to her reputation in the Senate unfairly, which is obviously, we know that's not the case, but I still think I ship them. But that's besides the point. I think Perrin's getting a little jealous, and he's getting a very Timmy, you know what I mean? Timmy.
We're gonna use it as a verb. But like I think that Perrin thinks so little of Mon that like he doesn't agree with her politics. He thinks that she's an annoyance, thinks that she's no fun, bit of a buzzkill, um, not a person he wants to have a partner with in his life, not somebody he wants to be married to, but they have to do it. That's the tradition, that's their lives. And I just don't think he thinks anything of her. So when she's like, I was better at pretending, he's like, you pretend? You're so full of nothing, I think is what he thinks of her. And then he becomes suspicious because he's jealous because Tay is somebody that clearly there's been like a years of any sort of relationship that makes Perrin feel a little threatened in some way. So yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. Perrin, you little shitbag. He's the worst. He's the
Little
worst. He's the
shithead.
worst.
Yeah.
There are some like really awful men in this show.
There really is. There really is.
Tim sucked. Perrin sucks. Cyril Karn, pathetic. Absolutely pathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I think about the purpose of Mothma scenes in these episodes, they are short. Like they're very short.
Yeah.
Um, I think the purpose of them is to really juxtapose like Cassian's current struggle and like what he's going through. He's like in jail fighting for his life. And then here we have Mothma at these parties and like they're just living such different lives, but she's having these fascinating conversations with people at the party where, they're like, oh, the emperor's primary objective is to protect us. That's what poured legislation is supposed to do. And Mothma's like, well, how much protection is enough? Like, and then some other guys like, well, we need surveillance and prosecution without limit. And another guy's like, well, if you have nothing to worry about, if you're not doing anything wrong, right? Like, what's the point? And so it's interesting to see that the battle that they're all fighting, right? Like Cassian is learning about this directive, and then Mothma is like fighting her ass against it. Like she's like, no, this is too much. This is too much even for the Empire. And some of the language too during the conversations that she has is very pointed, like, about the Emperor. He says what he means, which is very Trump coded. It's a lot of what Trump supporters would say when he would just say the most horrible things is like, well, he says what he means, and so here we see that phrase being used, and I think that's very intentional,
Of course.
in reference to Palpatine, right? So I don't know. It's just it's so interesting with the show, just seeing again back to like Vel's point, like everybody has their own form of rebellion, and to see every person in the show waging that rebellion. Like Luthen has
Right.
it, Saw has it,
Exactly.
Mothma has it. Cassian is finding his way there, but every action that he's doing is causing rebellion to spring up around the galaxy in these pockets, right? So, because of the Empire's backlash to something like Aldhani is now causing more of an uprising. People are rising, as Marva says, right?
I think that I mean, I agree with everything that you're saying there. I think that like really brings us to essentially the end, but also we should tag Ferrex in this because I feel like a lot of this Ferrex conversation is set up. We don't really get a lot of conclusions here, but we start to understand the way that the ripple effects affected the people on Ferrex. So we see Brasso, we see Bix, we see Marva, who is really struggling. And then we see the Empire's presence. Oh, we see Vel and Cinta. We also see Vel and Cinta,
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
now on Ferrex, I assumingly hunting Cassian,
Yeah.
which is complicated.
We're starting to see that stone cold killer Cinta that was referenced in the Twitter post and also talked about on the show. Like she puts the mission above everything else. And that's kind of what she tells Vel here, right? She's like, this is a fight to the
Yeah.
death.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, she understands that she's like giving her life over to this, while Vel maybe still sees that like Vel has a life outside of this, which is interesting.
mm-hmm.
She is still putting herself as part of the equation in her life. And Cinta no longer has herself as part of the equation in her life. Like I feel like Cinta's like, my life is the rebellion.
Right, like mission first, us second.
Yeah, she pretty much says that. But
whereas
like
Vel's like, well, can we do maybe us first and then like rebellion first and a half?
Right.
Can we?
I mean, she's still putting herself as part of the like a part of her self-preservation as part of her own life path, and Cinta just doesn't have any interest in that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Which is heartbreaking, right? It's a little bit of heartbreak when she says, I'll stay here, and then you go away, right? And I think Vel doesn't like that idea. And then we see that shot, that fade shot, which I love, of Vel looking at the transport, and then like Cinta on the left side of the screen looking out the window, and they're both looking at each other as it fades into the next shot, which I loved. I don't know like how that will all wrap up, but I did see like a clip from her actress. I'm blanking on her name right now, but she said that her favorite episode that she did was episode 12. Which is interesting. She's like, it's a work of genius. So I think Cinta will have a big role in episode 12, it sounds like. So the finale.
Well, I think she said I was able to read it. So I wonder if she's in it or if she just was able to like get her hands on the script as being an actor. Like they got to read everything.
Yeah. Maybe my hopeful mind says, they don't give scripts to everybody on Star Wars because it's so secretive. So she has to be in it.
But this is a totally different project, Like this is this whole own world.
I just want Cinta to have her moment is all in the finale. Right. That'd be kind of cool.
We should probably close up here with how terrifying Deidre Mero is and how I'm really scared. I think like Bix is in like this situation that she's in is really bad. And
she gets caught in the street. She tries to send out a message to Luthen. Luthen shuts off the comms, which is also terrible, right? Because again, like Luthen kind of comes into Ferrix, causes trouble with Cassian, leaves, and now the people of Ferrix are there to suffer for it, while Luthen is still sitting pretty in his double life, right? And when we talk about in the beginning of this episode, like the ripple effects of these actions and like the way that Luthen views those ripple effects, he knows people will suffer. He knows people like Pac, who we see taken out of that room. Clearly something really bad happened to him. And it looks like something bad might happen to Bix too, right? Like Luthen knows these things will happen and he knows it's the cost of like the rebellion, right? And so that's the most tragic part of it all. Bix is a good person. Brasso's a good person. Marva's a good person who she's sick now. She fell down. So she's recovering in this episode. Everybody's at a low point right now. So I'm just waiting to see like what that spark is.
Right.
I did like hearing the in the Ferrix, so the banging again. I did love that detail.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Oh my gosh. Wait, we got to talk about, we didn't even talk about Dedra and Cyril. We got to talk about it quick.
But like really, really quick. It's great.
Really quick.
They've definitely in my headcanon banged. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's fine. Yeah.
That scene is great. They are very interesting characters who have very chaotic energies that I like.
Yeah. And I just love how she's like, you've been here less than a month and you have filed 5 false reports. And he's like, 6 actually. Like we said this last week with Skylar. We knew he's still looking for Cassian. Like he's been using company resources to look for Cassian. He's on the Empire's time, cyber stalking Cassian, trying to find him. He's like putting in all these requests. And I think that's so funny. And he's like, I was a good soldier. I preserved order. And like the impression that you did of him last week when we talked with Skylar was like pretty spot on to Kyle Solar's performance this week, where he's like, I'm a good soldier, the best soldier. I found a killer in 2 days, and she's not having any of it. She's not entertaining any of it. She's just like, you raise the alarm one more time. It's not me who you're going to speak to, which
let me give you the line that I found that's really interesting. Can one ever be too aggressive in preserving order?
That gives me the impression that Cyril is not turning good ever at the series. I don't know.
He's Javering himself at the end of this series. He's gonna die an unspectacular death, whether it be by his own hand or somebody else's. But like,
he feels like she is serving some sort of larger purpose that he has only been able to see, right? Like everybody else around him is like, oh, your mission on Ferrix was pointless, but he still feels it was just and it was right. And he did the best job that he could. And now that he's being questioned about it, he feels like maybe Dedra sees that too, so it'll be interesting to see if that relationship continues or not. But I love seeing these 2 actors on screen in the same room. Like, I think it was brilliant. The 2 of them are giving some of the best performances on the show.
Nominate Kyle Solar for the Emmy 2022.
But Dedra is terrifying for sure. She's terrifying.
She's great. Yeah. Does that bring us to our ands and our ors?
Yeah, I had a couple odds and ends real quick.
Oh yes,
before
odds and ends and
ors, if
and
that's
ors.
okay.
I'm literally holding up my notepad with odds and ends, and then I just said ands and ors instead.
Cool.
Show both odds, ends, and
both. Why
yes.
not?
Okay.
I have some odds and ends here. Shout out to THX 1138, George Lucas's film.
Yes.
The prison is giving heavy THX vibes with the white walls, the white uniforms, the black prison guard uniforms.
Yes.
Hope George is happy somewhere watching this episode.
Do you think George watches Star Wars still? I have no idea.
I think George is watching Andor. That's my hot take. I think Melshi here says you're in here until they don't want you anymore. Getting out is just a dream. Those days are over. And I think that is so interesting when you think about Melshi being the one to hop in that Wobani transport and tell Jyn Erso, we're getting you out of here, right? Like rescuing her from prison, right? And
Brad.
here he is in prison. He's like, getting out is just a dream. Don't bank on it, right? And then he's gonna get Jyn Erso out of prison, right? And so
that was good. That was a good connection.
If I think about the dots, right, it seems like Melshi is on sort of this like prison rescue team for the rebellion, where he goes out and he rescues people that they need to get out. Or maybe it was just a one-off with Jyn, but maybe he's also a part of a team that is all about like prison liberation and like getting people out of those bad situations, like Jyn Erso. And it really is interesting to see like what that growth will be like, and if whatever happens here like motivates him to help others like him in the future get out of similar situations. So like Jyn. So a little bit of a fun Rogue One connection there. All right, your odds and ends.
My odds and ends are that the prison transport handrails that their like handcuffs get locked to on the side of, big Star Tours energy. In the subtitles, the word deliveries with regards to bringing people into the prison is in quotation marks. I thought that was an interesting detail. Yep. Also, the significance of the number 7. There are 7 floors with 7 tables, and there are 7 people at each table. Then they're all in circles. I don't know what it means, but as a BTS fan, there are also 7 members of BTS, and so I was like, 7s?
Okay.
7s? No. Stop it. I caught on to the number 7 because I'm a BTS fan, but I was like, it's interesting that everything is in 7s here. I think that there's something to be said there, but I don't know what it is. Like, there are 49 people on the floor plus Kino, so there's 50, so there's 100 on each floor. But like, why is that the number?
You're starting to sound like the BTS version of a Swiftie. You're like, there's 7 BTS members. There's 7 floors in the Andor prison. Andor has ANDOR. 5 letters, album. Which is just 2 letters short of 7. And there's 2 seasons of Andor. If you multiply 2 by the 5 letters, you get 10. There's been 10 Star Wars movies, or there will have been 10 Star Wars movies.
Oh my God. By 2025, and then we get the 2 and the 5, and that equals 7.
It's all connected.
Right. Yep. Which also means a BTS in the Star Wars universe.
Great. Hour 5 minutes in. We can do this.
Ands and ors, Brad. Ands
and ors. Okay. My ands. I really loved Andy Serkis. Seeing him in Star Wars once again. I just love him. And I did love Mon Mothma in her dress. Take Holma's arm as they walk around. Will they kiss? I hope so. Anyways, I love those 2.
I have a few that are swirling around in my head. My and is Deidre Miro and Cyril Karn.
Oh.
It's great.
Love them.
It's a good dynamic. Love it. I have nothing more to say.
I tweeted this. I said I wouldn't. I'm not saying I would read Daedra Cyril fanfic, but I'm also not saying I wouldn't read. That's all I'm saying. We
hit the hour mark and we like threw it off the rails here.
I know. Listen, if you gotten this far, this is where the good stuff happens.
Right. Okay. So my or for the day is Andy Serkis, Snoke, or Kino Loy.
Man, this is hard. I'm going to choose Kino Loy. Simply on the basis of the Snoke theories suck. Thank you, Rian Johnson.
I also say, I'm going to say episode 8 I'm modifying my own question. Episode 8, Snoke, with his monologues, are my favorite. Like, ever. When he's, like, just absolutely kicking the shit out of Kylo Ren with verbally.
Mm.
And he's like, you pathetic boy in a mask. Like, I live for that, actually.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Snoke was introduced in episode 7.
Sevens. This is
Think about it.
8. It's not even episode 7.
Andy Serkis being in Andor 8 and Star Wars 8. We love that. We love consistency. We love a man who will show up precisely when he needs to.
What's your ore? Come on, we have to end it.
My ore, 1 or 2 worms in your drink.
1. I've heard it's pretty gross.
Seems lame. You're paying all that money at the bar for that drink.
The people know. People know. I am not the fun friend. Okay.
Anyways, well, my answer would be 2 worms because, go big or go home. It's kind of how I'm feeling. Feeling a little experimental in the Star Wars tonight.
Cannot relate, but you do you. I respect that for sure.
I will be enjoying my worms. Don't mind me.
Okay.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. And if you want to keep enjoying our worm drinks with us, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. We also, Sarah and I are on those platforms as well as Letterboxd and Goodreads. So follow us for all of our latest ramblings and whatnot. You can also subscribe to the show wherever you listen. And please leave us a rating if you enjoyed this episode of Andor Candor. We got plenty more coming. A couple more weeks left of Andor, and then we're at the finish line for season 1.
Yeah, super exciting things coming down the pipeline for Andor, I think. So I'm really excited to be able to dive into that on the show. And we also have a Patreon where tiers start at just $1. And we're very, very grateful to all of our patrons who help make the show happen every week. So thank you to Amy, Brian with an I, Brian with a Y, Cheryl, Clay, Danny Davis, Dylan, Huang, Jen, Knights of Ren, Leanne, Levi, Lindsay, Lucy, Rob, Saber BK, Sky Talker, Stephen, Travis, Tom, and our newest patron, Santa. Thank you all so much for your support. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who takes the time out of their day to listen to this episode. It means the world to us. Very odd, but very humbling. So thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all once again. And until next time, may the Force be with you always.